Hello, hello, and welcome to the Show, probably the world's best TV review podcast. Welcome to episode 52. In this episode, we review the 2018 Netflix horror series inspired by the 1959 Shirley Jackson novel. If you kiss my husband, that's what you get. You get punched in the fucking boob. Today on the Show, The Haunting of Hill House. I'd like to welcome you inside the broadcast booth. I'm Jay, and I am joined, as always, by my two Hall of Famers. On the line today, we have my forever travel buddy and tour guide, King of the Andals and the First Men, Lord of the Seven Kingdoms and Protector of the Realm. It's Tony.
Hello, hello. You can check out my Ancestry.com report. It says white AF.
On the other side of the table, we have my brother at the bar and master of the microphone, a man who has never had his phone seized by federal agents in a Hardee's drive-thru. It's Aaron.
Howdy. And do we even have Hardee's in Texas? I don't think so.
I think we got
Carl's
Carl's Jr.
Jr.'s.
Yeah,
they're the same. I think there's some Hardee's too, maybe.
I remember going north and seeing Hardee's and had the same logo as Carl's Jr. and I was like, this just seems wrong.
I could get down on some Hardee's. I got to be honest. That is a burger I enjoy.
Speaking of burgers, is anyone scared by Hill House?
Well, before we get there, you can always check out our social media for news about the show, including our now indefinitely postponed 2022 and 23 tour and cruise, along with plenty of other bonus content. You can find us both on Instagram and on Twitter at the Show Pod. You can email us at the Show TV podcast at gmail.com. You can find us on YouTube if you aren't already there at Mandamus Radio. You can find me individually at J Suespante. Aaron, where can we find you?
At Tenacious Aaron on Twitter.
And Tony?
Find me at tpinquite at Instagram.
For those of you on the live stream, if we've got time, we may take calls later in the show. So get them lined up. You can call 888-787-1310, 888-787-1310. Preliminary matters, gentlemen, let's go to the unofficial scoreboards. For anybody new out there, these are shows that are not chosen by the Wheel of Randomonium, but we still feel are significant enough to warrant being put on the record. So, Tony, any contributions for the unofficial scoreboard today?
Unfortunately, no. I can say I started watching Rings of Power. I watched maybe half of the first episode, and that's as far as I've gone, if that tells you anything. I haven't picked it back up because I'm just not interested in it right now, but I'm hearing it gets better. I don't know if either of y'all have dipped any toes. Yeah, Lord of the Rings on Amazon Prime.
My cousin is very fond of fantasy shows, and so, like Legends of the Seeker, things like that. So he's super digging it. But he's really into deep fantasy. Like that really is what drives the content for him. So I'm not. I'm more sci-fi personally. Fantasy's fun. I enjoy it, but I couldn't rewatch Lord of the Rings after the first time. Like I was like, yeah, that was the experience, and I want to do it again. So, but I don't know. Like that's one thing. It's on every single shipping, like from Amazon right now. It says, Lord of the Rings Power on everything. Like that. We'll talk about brilliant advertising.
And
good.
The football season has restarted, and it's significant this year because the Thursday night NFL game has now moved exclusively to Prime Video.
That's crazy.
You cannot find it on any terrestrial television or cable or otherwise. It's only through Prime Video, and they also do a stream through Twitch, which is also owned by Amazon. But they were very clever in the way that they presented it because they still had commercial breaks, but the commercials were almost exclusively for Amazon products and especially their shows. So there was a ton of Rings of Power commercials throughout that game on Thursday.
It's you're using your conglomerate level power to market something that needs to succeed. So
Yeah, it's almost like why has it taken so long? This actually seems kind of like a slam dunk for somebody like Amazon, but I guess that's the future.
We will see. I haven't watched it, but I've heard it's better than the Game of Thrones prequel. So
Really?
that's what I've heard. But again,
Okay.
people may be more interested in Lord of the Rings backstory than Game of Thrones backstory. A little bit more satisfying ending with Lord of the Rings over Game of Thrones. So, on my unofficial scoreboard, I have two shows that I've just been tangentially watching, which are interesting. Number one, regular show is what me and Christy have been watching at lunchtime, just because
Mhm.
it's not non-committal. But I will say, quite a few concepts, like as a young adult show, quite a few concepts addressed and different things that I think are really well done in that show. Like super impressed by it as for cartoon, and also just fun and funny. But the other one is at nighttime. I've been falling asleep to Married with Children, and man, do some of those jokes not age well. Um, but it's really interesting to watch kind of this show, which I guess at a time it was somewhat groundbreaking because it kind of flipped the perception of the family at home on its head. Um, it's early white trash television, right? Like I'm a huge fan of like Trailer Park Boys and stuff like that. So this is just like early white trash television, and it's really interesting to watch. Um, Kind of back then, what the '90s considered to be trashy people, you know. So I it has been interesting, funny, dated at times, but nonetheless, it's an interesting sitcom. I don't know that I could give it a rating because I fall asleep to most of the episodes, but
Yeah, I feel you on that.
but it's one of those I've watched it before, like I've seen it before, and I watched it, and I just remember last time watching, it's funny, it's okay, but it's not. I don't think it's groundbreaking. It just felt like it was a bunch of you know razzing each other all the time.
Mhm.
So I don't know. My parents didn't let us watch shows like Married with Children or The Simpsons when I was growing up. So those kind of shows always had a kind of an air to them that they were off limits. So whenever I finally watched them, and I was like, it's not that big a deal. This
Yeah,
sounds like
like
a good show.
the forbidden fruits of something like South Park.
Yeah. Well, South Park holds up most of the time, but
Yeah.
Simpsons, I honestly feel like Simpsons not. Maybe it was groundbreaking back in its day, but now I feel like it's so bloated and ugh, I just don't want to watch it.
Yeah, I'm not a Simpsons guy.
So, well, Jay, what about you? What have you been watching on the unofficial channels?
I had a show recommended to me through the collective brain of Reddit, where there was a thread about if you like Nathan For You, what else would you like? And there was a lot of chatter about a show I had never heard of before called Review, and it aired on Comedy Central back in I think starting in about 2014, and it stars Andy Daly, he's kind of a that guy. He's guest starred on 1,000 sitcoms, most famously maybe as
Yeah,
Ben.
the vice principal in Vice Principals on HBO with I know exactly who this is.
Was he on that?
He was with what's his name? He's in like it's not Vice Principals. It's Eastbound and Down with the guy from Righteous Gemstones. I can't think of his name right now off the top of
With
my
Danny
head.
McBride. He was, oh damn, he is in everything.
He is in
Um,
everything.
I I mostly think of him as Ben Franklin in that one episode of The Office. Um, but it's him, and he's a reviewer, but he doesn't review books or movies or restaurants. He reviews life experiences,
Mm.
like getting divorced or being a racist, or it's completely ridiculous, and it in the same way that Nathan For You kind of makes you question a little bit of like what's real and what's scripted. It's just a really really funny show. It's on Paramount Plus right
Mm.
Was
now.
that guy? Was he the PC guy in the Justin Long Apple versus PC commercial?
No,
Or
that's
is it someone
No.
else?
That's John Hodgman.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
that guy is also very weird and funny.
Yeah, so I would say definitely check out Review if you want to watch a very funny show. Something else that I experienced recently that ties in with our last episode was it was the 40th anniversary of the release of Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan, and so they played it in movie theaters on a couple of nights, and me and a friend of mine from high school went and saw it, and it was just so much fun to see this movie that I'd seen 1,000 times on my little TV at home, to finally experience it on the big screen with the huge picture in front of you, with all of the surround sound and the speakers and the stars flying at you. It was, even though it's a movie from 1982, it was fantastic. So if you ever get a chance to go see a re-release of a movie like that, like, definitely do it.
I got to do a couple of the riff tracks, which is by the guys who do the Mystery Science Theater 3000 show,
Mhm.
where they like play an old movie and then they riff on it live and broadcast it to all the theaters, and it was really fun. Like anytime I feel like those Fathom events that they advertise at the theater that no one goes
Mhm.
to, actually,
Yeah.
some of them are actually pretty cool and are worth
Yeah.
checking out.
Yeah, that stuff is a whole lot of fun, and I haven't been in the theater a lot since the pandemic. It was only my second time, actually, come to think of it. So I'm hoping that things continue to be better health wise, so we can keep doing that sort of thing.
Reminds me, I need to
But
get my
I'm
booster.
sorry. Yeah, yeah, me too.
Oh,
Well, yeah, go ahead.
sorry. Me and Christy, before we started, called House, the Haunting of Hill House. We finished up Stranger Things season 4, which we were behind. So I will say that I felt like, unofficially, that it was a little more of a redemption of the Stranger Things storyline, because I
Mhm.
really enjoyed the first season. The second season was not as great, and the third season was okay. But I felt like this last season they actually made things exciting and fun and interesting again. Um, so I I don't know. I know that Stranger Things is one of those unique cultural type shows that people have less strong feelings for or against, but I think that they've actually found their groove again. Though I thought that it was the end, and that it's not. They're just gonna keep doing shit.
Oh, I thought there was going to be one more, and then they were done.
I don't know. That's what they said about the last one, though. There's gonna be
Um,
season 5 now, so
Feels like that's what they always did with How I Met Your Mother. It's like they tried to land the plane at the end of every season, and then they had to be like, oh, well, not yet, not yet.
yeah. Or
Abort.
Lost.
Pull up. Pull up.
Yeah, Lost is another one.
All right,
Well,
let's get scary.
let's get scary. Let's talk ghosts. And before I throw it over to Tony, I did want to pose a question to the panel, and it's a very simple question: do you believe in ghosts?
That's a negatory for me.
Not in the sense that like ghost stories, ghosts. No. Like I believe everything, like energy, right? Like I feel like that there's definitely energy. And I don't know if you've ever been to somewhere where like something horrible took place, but there can be like this energy. Like if you go to where like Auschwitz, right? A lot of people who go to Auschwitz feel this negative energy lingering from what took place there. If you were to go and not know what it was, would you still feel that energy? I don't know. But I have been places where I felt energy, felt something off. Have I ever seen like a ghost? No. Do I think that there are ghosts? No. But you know, Einstein said everything out there is nothingness and energy. So who am I to say what that energy, what forms it can take?
You're absolutely right about the energy. Tony and I actually we visited Dachau on a trip together, and it was a powerful, very affecting experience, just being in that place. Um, and then we went and drank a whole bunch of beer and saw the J.J. Abrams Star Trek Into Darkness.
Oh yeah, we did do that. We should go see more movies when we get back out there into the world.
Yeah, we should. Well, this show was a Tony pick. So, Tony, tell us about Haunting of Hill House.
Forgot about that. Like you said at the beginning, I think it's based on a novel, but basically the show follows this family and it jumps back and forth through time, like I guess flashbacks from the children are fully grown. We find out in the first episode that the mother has died under mysterious circumstances, and then the show, it's 10 episodes, takes us through piece by piece of the children in present day, leading up to spoiler alert, a return to the house, and then flashing back to their summer at the house from the time they first got there to their last night, which is the very end of it shown in the first episode. So it kind of leaves you big teaser in the premiere that kind of gets fleshed out.
They did what Tokyo Vice did, but right.
Yeah, it actually made it back to the beginning.
Yeah, you're right.
Well, we get this really weird kind of two-part story, right? We get the telling of the time at Hill House as kids, and then as adults. And there's two deaths, right? That the two stories surround. The past surrounds the ultimate death of the mother, and then the future story surrounds the ultimate death of the youngest daughter, which is Nell. We have on our cast of characters, we have, what is it? Stephen Crain, which is the oldest son. We have
Shirley is the oldest daughter.
Yeah, the oldest daughter. We have the middle daughter, which is Theo. We have Luke and Nell, which are the twins, and this is the Crain family. And then there's Hugh, the father, patriarch of the family, and then there's Olivia, who's the mother. And like in the first episode, we are kind of alluded to that something has happened at the house, and the father's has to get the kids out, and they don't know where mom is. But we also have this kind of unfolding of Nell kind of spiraling out of control, ultimately ending up at the house, and then, through phone calls, us finding out that she has died, right? And that kind of starts off our story. And the first episode really surrounds Steven, right? Like it's kind of that day leading up to Nell's death from his perspective. Mm-hmm. And this is one thing I thought that was good about the story, was that it, like, each of these first 5 episodes are kind of a glimpse into the life and day of each child: Steven, Shirley, Theo, Luke, and then ultimately Nell, up to the halfway point of the season. Like that's the first half of the series.
Yeah, that structure I thought was very clever and very well done, because we got those first 5 focusing on the children, then we get that episode of the I guess maybe you could call it the wake before Nell's funeral, where it's just the family and it's almost one continuous shot, but all
bottle episode.
Still, bottle episode. But still flashing back and forth between the timelines very, very cleverly as well. And then after that, we get an episode focusing on each parent, and then the resolution at the end in episode 10. So I thought the way that they structure that, and especially in the end, once we get down to some of the explanations, the way that they did the story in a non-linear fashion, where we're flashing back to what we've seen between the children, but we didn't realize that they were just on 2 sides of a wall or 2 sides of a door.
Yeah,
that was very clever, and I thought that was very well done.
Mm-hmm. Tying some of the pieces together, connecting the dots at the end. We got fragments from the perspective of the children, and the way that they did it by telling each child's story, it felt disjointed, and then they brought the stories all together at the end. And also gets back to perception, right? Like how kids perceive things, how they remember things versus the adults. I thought that was also very well done and portrayed in the show.
Yeah, I really liked the transitions between like time periods and locations too. Like I thought there was a really cool scene in the funeral parlor, I guess, when the dad's walking down the hallway and then he turns the corner and then it's the hallway at the house. But it
Yeah.
feels like it's just like one, like a dolly shot, like panning to the right or whatever. And I was like, that's pretty cool.
Also, like
And
the way that they were haunted, right? Like where they would see things but that weren't there, and sometimes it was actually like a haunting, like where Theo and Hugh see the like undead version of Olivia crawling towards them in the funeral home.
Mhm.
And then there's the stuff where Shirley sees the guy that she cheated on her husband with. Right? And or when Shirley sees her mother. Like when like there's a play between mental illness and haunting kind of in this show, right? And they even Steven even calls it out. He's like, we got this family has mental illness, but there are moments where you can't tell, is it imagination, is it haunting, is it mind playing tricks on you? The show lets you kind of guess about that stuff at times.
I like it. Like I started. Oh, sorry, Jane. Go ahead.
Well, on the subject of whether it's mental illness or ghosts, I felt like they could have done a better job of making you question whether it was either one, because it so often felt that it was just both, and that felt a little lazy.
I feel like they gave us three potential explanations, but that it is Ghost. Like it's one of those things like it's Ghost. Hey everybody, it's Ghost. Could it be a mental illness? Maybe. Could it be black mold causing everyone to have some type of shared hallucinations? Maybe, but it's Ghost.
Right, like it was like supernatural mold.
Yeah, unholy supernatural living conscious house mold.
Like, you're gonna have to get the Ghostbusters in to clean this mold. Like, I also just go ahead.
You remember that scene in Casper whenever they show up at the house and like Dan Aykroyd comes out and is like, "Who you gonna call? Somebody else."
Oh, Dan Aykroyd.
Sorry. That was a silly thought. What were you saying, Jay?
Oh, I was gonna say, I think sometimes I struggle with haunted house stories because they so often use as their protagonists property developers, and I have kind of a fundamental lack of sympathy for property developers.
For flippers?
Yeah.
But these were flippers in the like 80s.
Well, it was 1992.
So this wasn't their first house.
Yeah, well, sure, but I was, however, comforted once I realized that this show has firmly placed itself in the Cheers Frasier universe. Because if you think about it, the house is where it's in Massachusetts, outside of Boston, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're talking about the Crain family with Dr. Crain.
Oh,
it fits.
I see. Did y'all ever watch the movie The Haunting with Liam Neeson in it, and I think Catherine Zeta-Jones?
Yeah, a very long time ago.
Because that's like in the same universe, except for like in that movie, like the Cranes are like the owners of the house, and like Hugh Crane's like the main bad guy ghost and stuff in it. And then like Nell is the main character of that movie, and she's like all grown up and returning home, and then she finds out she was like one of the children. It was just like a weird, like I wonder. I haven't read the book or Wikipedia what the real story is. Like I wonder if the movie's just like
it's
a straight up like
different. It's
changing all the names, and
it's radically different. Christy read the book or listened to the audiobook, and she explained to me that it's like a doctor who's wanting to do scientific test on the paranormal, and like invites these people to the house, and like one of the Cranes owns the house. I think it's like Luke owns the house, and he's like staying there, and they like invite Theo, who is insinuated to be a lesbian, and then there's Nell, but they're not related in any way. And like as things start happening, paranormal
this
things
is the
start
book
happening.
or the
This is the
movie?
book. This is the original book. When paranormal things start happening, Nell starts kind of losing touch with reality and starts deciding that like she needs to stay there, and they're like, you need to leave. And she ends up like crashing her car into a tree and killing herself. And that's like the story, right? And so they take some names, they take the location, some of the haunting aspects, but they've created this family and narrative, and all of that stuff is all Netflix like change.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I liked it. That was what I was gonna say earlier. Is I like it when there's like the same scene but from different camera angles, because I always like
Mhm.
think about it as like, well, I wasn't paying attention, but I didn't see anything. Like one main one that really caught me was when they're taking Nell's body out of like the transport van or whatever, and then Theodora's like, "Oh, I can't do this," and she walks to her Jeep, and then like the camera's focused on it's the family in the van. You see her get into the Jeep, and then she drives off. You hear her drive off, and then like another scene flashes back where it shows kind of the same thing, but then it like walks right next to Theo as she's getting into the Jeep. But like in the first one, you obviously don't see a camera walking beside her. So I'm like, I don't know. I just always like it when you're like someone had to have planned it out where to have all these cameras that weren't in each other's shots and to film it, because it definitely felt like every time there was two different angles. Like I think when Steve is fixing up the mirror with his mom, that has two different angles.
Yeah.
I was just am impressed when I guess these things are like thought out pretty far in advance is what they would have to be to get everything so smoothly. Because I don't feel like they just refilmed the scene. I feel like it was the exact same vocal inflection and everything like that.
Oh, shattering the mirror and it being identical. Yeah, you have to do that one time.
Hmm.
I agree with you. I also think that they did a really good job of uh, I, the twist. I think so. This. What did you guys think of the bent neck lady twist? That Nell was haunting herself her whole life.
I did not like it.
You didn't like that twist.
I didn't like it when time manipulation became a thing in the story. Like, because right after that, you find out the mom is like seeing the twins as future, and that's what kind of sends her off on the need to protect them and stuff. And I was like, I just didn't like that part of it.
I also felt like there was a major hole in it, like just plot wise. This was something that I caught this time around that I didn't before. But Hugh is talking to the mother like as an adult the whole time, right? And we see the apparition, we see him talking with her and all these different things. And then he gets to the house. She's like, I've been here the whole time. I've been stuck. I haven't seen you. I haven't talked to you, and I can't leave. And so we've got her saying that, but we also have like clear depictions of her outside the house, right? Her crawling on the ground in Shirley's office, right towards Theo and towards Hugh. Her crawling out of the grave at Nell's gravesite. You know, we have Nell showing up at Steve's apartment. We have Nell showing up at the wake. We have Nell showing up at the funeral. So continuity wise, can they leave the house and haunt afar? Was it the house haunting them? Was that all the mental illness? How would you be able to see Nell as the bent neck lady if you didn't know that's what she looked like? You see what I'm saying? Like there seemed to be a break in what was actually the rules of the universe at some point when the end comes around. And that's where I kind of was like, oh, well, wait, that doesn't make a lot of sense. We have all this stuff happening, all these hauntings happening as adults, far away from the house, across the continent, in California. How is that happening? That doesn't make sense. And that's where I guess the argument for mental illness comes in.
Mm-hmm.
But
because very very often in this show, you see one of the Crain children suffer some kind of psychological stress. They have real problems in their lives, and then that's when the ghost shows up.
Yep. Oh gosh, the scene where Nell has got the sleep paralysis and her husband has an aneurysm. That was a rough scene to watch.
Have either of you ever experienced sleep paralysis?
I have not, but I have a friend who suffered with it his whole life. He says it's terrifying.
Because I have. It's happened to me not a handful of times throughout my life, and I think what I've experienced is probably a mild case, but it's quite upsetting because the line between your dream and reality gets blurred in a way that you're not used to at all, and things get very Lynchian very quickly. But I didn't like in that depiction the way that Nell was whimpering and shaking, because like, come on guys, it's paralysis. Like that's not how that works. But watching somebody be stiff as a board in bed, that doesn't make good television.
Mm-hmm.
So you make decisions.
Well, so this time watching through the details that I thought I appreciated, at least, like the first time that Nell's on the couch as a little girl and the bent neck lady's hovering above her, you can hear her whispering no, 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 no.
Mm-hmm.
When Nell falls through her own history and gets to that scene, she's saying no, 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 and then she starts to scream at that very last scene where the first time she is seen. I thought that twist was very interesting. Like, I did not see that coming the first time I watched it. I didn't so much have a problem with time manipulation, but also they already had shown that they're not really following any set of rules. So, but I thought the twist was interesting.
Do we ever, like, maybe I just wasn't paying good enough attention. Maybe it was at the very beginning that it was explained, but like, what was the reason the dad? I know the kids hate the dad because he never really told them what's going on, but like, what's the reason the dad hasn't, like, he didn't raise them at all? I don't think he was in prison, or did he lose custody of the kids? Like, I don't understand why he was gone for like forever, and also I don't understand how he was holding back the door just by not telling them the truth that their house was haunted or something. Is that what I'm supposed to infer from that?
That he didn't tell them what happened that night about the tea party. But again, Luke and Nell were there, right? Like,
Yeah.
To me, I don't know. I kind of agree with you that it's hard to understand because they don't fully explain. They just seem to all be resentful of their father of not being honest about what happened to their mother. And
he wasn't there, but I don't know why he wasn't there exactly.
Perhaps it was like 3 years or something. Maybe he went through a criminal trial and it didn't.
Yeah,
he wasn't convicted or something.
Like that was my take, was that we get the exposition from Steve about the injuries to the mom, which I think that's telling us that Steve has always assumed that the dad murdered the mom or beat her up and then she jumped. But basically holding the dad responsible for the mother's death. And, I could 100% see that person having their kids taken away from them and given to a family member, because we hear about the aunt that they're supposed to go stay with, right?
Yeah.
And, something had to happen for him to transform into Timothy Hutton. So
that's true.
That was also a weird choice. I didn't I spent most of the show thinking, like, why not just like make the young actor old, or make Timothy Hutton a little more smooth faced in the edit? Like, why did you have to use two different actors? That I didn't really get that.
Yeah, I liked the younger. Like, I don't feel like it would have been hard to age him up. I didn't realize he was Elliot from E.T.
The young version or the
young version?
Yeah, Christy was like, "That's Elliot from E.T." I was like, "Oh, that's weird."
Have you seen that audition casting tape of him for E.T.
No.
He's a little kid?
No.
It's like amazing. I'll find it on YouTube and send it to y'all or something.
What do you guys have against Timothy Hutton? Just curious.
I don't have anything against Timothy Hutton.
Their ages were that different. Yeah, I was just like, why don't just put a little bit of makeup? Makeup's come a long way. I don't know why they had to be two different people. I think they did a good job of like feeling like the same person, but I wish it was just the same person.
I guess it's supposed to be like, what, 30 years later? So.
Well, the previous timeline was 1992.
20 years later?
Yeah, I guess like 25-ish. If this,
you probably could just do makeup. You're right.
Yeah.
Well, especially since the mother never aged, right? So they didn't have to have an older version of her.
Now, shout out to the casting on this show, because I think they did a fantastic job of casting a group of actors who actually were like believable as siblings and parents,
Yeah.
and then also believable between the past versions and then themselves, with the exception of Timothy, of course.
So, best performance by the children, best performance by the adult versions. What do you guys think?
Theo of the children. For me,
And of the
adults,
adults?
I liked Steven.
Okay.
What? Really?
I didn't really care for. I thought Theodora did really good when she had to break it on Crain. I did not like Shirley really in either case. If I was to pick a least favorite,
That's your Donna.
Oh gosh.
that's season 1 Donna, not that's not a Fire Walk with Me Donna.
So, Jay, what do you think?
Well, for the children, it's tough to say which one like performance wise was the best, but the Luke with those Coke bottle glasses was the most like endearing. Like he was my favorite of the kids.
Yeah, same here. I loved Luke's performance and his screams, like when he went down into the basement.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
Those felt real. Those
Yeah.
straight up felt real. Sorry, Katie.
Adults, I think the show wanted you to think that Theo's performance was the best, but I think Shirley's performance was the best.
Really? Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
What? So this is really interesting to me. I couldn't stand Theo as an adult.
Yeah.
I just didn't like her. I also didn't like Steve on the front half of the show.
Mm-hmm.
He felt like someone who was written by someone who's not talked to a lot of dudes on the front half. The second half, I agree with Tony. He comes out of his shell. He feels more real. He feels more dynamic, authentic.
Mm-hmm.
But even like as a depressed horror writer going through what he's going through, it doesn't feel real. Like I didn't believe him that he was this character with these problems and this family and this stuff. At the end, I did. I felt like he came into his own. I do agree with you, Jay, that Shirley, I thought, knocked it out of the park on her performance, but I also agree with Tony. I didn't like Shirley that much either. She was a massive hypocrite.
Oh yeah.
Which of course was what haunted her, was her hypocrisy. But I don't know. As a fellow brother of the bar, do you really think that they would go and arrest a guy based or go question a guy based off a hunch of a child psychiatrist?
Oh my God. I'm so glad you said that, because when I saw that, I immediately said that to Lindsay. I was like, this is such nonsense that you just call up the cops and be like, hey, I've got a hunch that those people in that house are abusing that child. Go arrest him. And then they go do it. That's not how this works at all. And like Lindsay got mad at me for saying that. Like, oh.
It just wouldn't. The way they insinuated is that they questioned him and he folded immediately. But the fact that like on a hunch you need to go question this guy, you better have a really good relationship with those cops, because if you just say that to some random police officer, they'll be like, who the hell are you?
Yeah, I didn't
guess
really
they did a
like
micro backstory where they said it seems like she's done it multiple times in the past. She's like, I've never been wrong before.
That's fair. She did say that.
But then like that's a spin-off show of the superhero like child sex investigator who can figure it out by just touching things. Like that's a CBS procedural, right?
That's a future soundbite if I've ever heard one.
Theo's power was definitely the coolest. Like, I just don't know how you don't start using it for good or evil. Like, I don't know how she wasn't using it more. Like, I get she's using it to help little children, which is noble, but I don't know how she's not using it like in her daily
life.
It
seemed to be quite overwhelming and not always positive, right? Like, you can't, if we believe that you're sensitive and you like can touch things and all of a sudden feel what happened there, then you can't control whether good or bad comes from what you touch, right? So I guess that's the reason why like the mother was like, I'm going to give you these gloves because your grandmother was sensitive too and she wore gloves. Maybe it's just too overwhelming to be constantly empathing all the time.
Yeah. I also didn't understand how Theo's end of her story arc was her taking off the gloves with her new girlfriend. I'm like, okay, I understand, like, you're willing to touch her now and open yourself up to her, but like, does this mean you're going to start touching people out in public now? Like, why'd you take? Like, I figured you would still wear the gloves. You know
I
what
thought
I
she
mean?
was wearing the gloves the first time they had sex, and then she puts them on, and she's like, "What's with the gloves?" And she's like, "I'm kind of a germaphobe," and she's like, "Thanks." So she took the gloves off the first time.
I think
Yeah,
she
but
probably uses this
like,
as like sex powers to know exactly what her partner wants in the moment. She's like a sex genius, probably.
but her end of her story was her getting rid of the gloves. But does that mean that
She's gonna
she's now?
stop putting walls around herself and be open to the world.
She symbolically got rid of the
Yeah.
gloves, Jay. She had a second pair in her purse.
Okay. Well,
That's
like
one thing that, like, maybe it's just me, or maybe I wasn't in the mood for it, but like, I feel like this started getting really kind of preachy towards the end. Like, especially the conversation between Olivia and Hugh on like the top of the staircase. I'm like, this is getting really, like, I wanted this to be a scary show, not about love as much as it was, I guess, because I just wanted something different. And then at the end, where Steven's like, everything's a ghost, like,
yeah.
negativity, and then like the girlfriend, like, fear and whatever are just sisters of it. And like, oh, like, I was like, what is this show like? Where are we going?
Pretty Pink bowed it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I really didn't like Steve's monologue at the end where he's talking about how fear is inherently irrational or illogical somehow. That's just not true.
And that's an evolutionary. That's not why we're still alive.
Yeah, man. Like, I've thought the takeaway from horror was supposed to be that, like Robert California says, that like fear is a necessary component of our lives. And maybe sometimes we need to take a month out of the year and celebrate it.
Well, have you ever read a Steve Crain book? That's probably why. He's a shitty writer.
Gilderoy Lockhart, motherfucker.
Did y'all like the? Sorry, go ahead.
No, Tony, go ahead. Nothing important to say.
Did you like the pacing? I feel like I had a couple moments. Like, I feel like episode 4, I'm like, all right, are we finally getting started on this? Like, it was all good. Like, I really enjoyed each episode. I didn't really feel like there was a bad one, but I was just feel like the first third, I was like, all right, can we start picking it up? And then I feel like it did a little bit, and then like maybe like 66% of the way through, I was like, okay, come on, let's start getting to some stuff. I guess I was just expecting more horror and scares than it really backed off on that after the very first episode was pretty, like, I was like, oh yeah, this is like a good mix of scary and story. And then it really went pretty heavy on the story and the relationship on the family, which, like I said, still really good, really great story and storytelling. But I was kind of like, I was missing the horror on some of them.
I felt like it was horror light. Like, I remember the last time, like, I watched this with Christy, and I remember walking away from being like, it was okay. It was a good story. It was entertaining, but it wasn't that scary. Like, the original
none of the things were scary.
Paranormal Activity was more scary than this.
Tall floaty dude with the cane. I'm like, this ain't scary. Like, none of the people's faces, once you actually saw the ghosted faces, were scary. They were just like moldy. Like, this is not a scary face. This is just a rotty face.
Yeah, and plus, Evil Dead did it like 40 years ago. So.
I'll agree that the frequency of the scares and the horror was actually pretty low, and that really allowed me to stomach it. So that's something that I honestly appreciated. So did you guys get the proverbial chills? Was this a chilling show for you?
I got it a few times. I love the sound design was really great, like, because I listened on headphones for most of it. I was like, this sounds really good. Like, all the rain sounded really good, and just like different bumping noises. Like, I felt like you could hear where they were coming from and stuff like that. So
they built the suspense well. Yeah, I would agree that they did better at the suspense than the scares.
One scare that got me was when the sisters are driving down the road.
Yes.
I guess I was zoned out. And then, like, I looked at the screen, it's just like, wow. I'm like, oh my God. That was definitely the biggest one that actually got me.
I'm
Now,
sorry, which scene? I'm totally lost for what scene that was. You have to remind me.
The sisters are fighting like in the car driving out to the house, and then all of a
Oh
sudden Mel
yeah.
just like
Mhm.
pops out in
Yeah.
between them.
I remember. That's when they're driving to the house, right?
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. The story continuity problems aside that we talked about earlier, I did appreciate that the scares were open opportunity. It wasn't just in dark and scary situations. Like sometimes those ghosts would pop out in broad daylight when other people were around. So it was kind of fair game at any time.
Well, it didn't just leave. Like there's a lot of shows that do the build, and then blah, right? And it's a very formulaic scare. And they did some of the builds, and they did some of those, but they also did ones that, like you said, just were out of the blue, and that's what makes it more fun. Is that you can't rely on it just the signpost to tell you when something's going to happen. Also, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, go. I don't know if it's with y'all or a different friend that I was talking about. Like, do you ever get when in movies where people have been like haunted or whatever, followed for like their entire lives? Do you ever just feel like, I mean, luckily I never had to be in that situation, but I feel like, after a certain point, I just be like, let's just do this thing. You know what I mean? Like, I'm being followed by this dude in a hat with this cane just floating there. Like, I'm tired of this dude following me. Like, if he kills me, I guess that's what's going to happen. But like, do they never get tired of it and just try to like attack it somehow or like face up to it? I mean, like, I guess no one wants to die and they think they're going to die. But I'm just like, after a lifetime of it, I would just be tired of it.
To me, this gets back to aspects of trauma. Like, I remember reading kind of about people who fake PTSD, and like they want to talk about what caused their PTSD a lot, whereas people who actually have PTSD suffer avoidance. They don't want to talk about it. They don't want to think about it. They don't want to think about the stuff that's triggering the negative effect, the negative feeling, the negative sensation, the depression, the anxiety. They're trying to avoid thinking about it, avoid looking at it, avoid being reminded of it. And to me, when Luke is walking away from the floating cane man, and to me that's the avoidance. He's avoiding the trauma. He's avoiding the PTSD. He doesn't want to face it because he doesn't know what's necessarily there, but he knows what the trauma of his childhood felt like, and he's trying to avoid that. His entire life of doing drugs is seeking avoidance of his feelings, of his experience, of his memories, of his hauntings. So, like, if it was a person following you, I could see that. But in this situation where it's something haunting you, I don't know, man. It's I don't know that your mind would think the same way that it would think if it was like a person following you. Or at least
You
mine.
brought up something that I thought about. Like, I feel like the mom was a failure. Maybe if we're not gonna call her a failure with the children of like helping them with their gifts or whatever that she obviously knew they seemed to have, then at least with like explaining to her husband like over their 15-year relationship that like she can sense these things. Like I feel like he knew that she saw colors, but I'm like she should have been like more open about her stuff, and then also with the kids about like, oh, you're actually like seeing this stuff, like because I think we're pretty sure it was actually ghosts.
I think my takeaway was that as open as she could have been or was, the father just wasn't going to hear it. He was not going to be convinced that any of that was real. He was just going to say that she was sick, and maybe he had some denial of his own. And they mention a few times another one of the symptoms that she suffers from is migraines, and that's something that you see so often with people with mental illness, especially when it's untreated, is that the psychologically based symptoms start to manifest themselves in physical ways that might be completely unrelated seemingly, or in completely unexpected ways. And so a lot of times that's what it kind of shows up as. And I saw the mother as somebody who needed help, but no one around her was willing to give it or willing to even see that she needed it.
And the way mental illness has been treated in this country, in our history, not always the most positive. Remember, whenever he kind of indicates, he kind of almost says that she's acting crazy, and she almost like frantically is like, crazy, type, like, how dare you call me crazy, type thing.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that, I think, comes back to perception of what it means to be crazy and what could happen to you, and people being afraid to actually address mental illness. But also, okay, speaking of failures, let's talk about the Dudleys for a second.
Yeah, right? What the hell?
Because these characters I felt really weird about. Like, number one, the fact that the night that their daughter dies, Abigail, Luke's not imaginary friend, they're way too calm about their daughter dying.
Oh, like, yeah, the way they just sweep it under the rug and they're like, we're just not going to tell anybody about this.
Yeah.
Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, that had me thinking that the dad murdered. Well, I forgot that at the beginning he said that they were still on the grounds, but like I was thinking, oh, the dad had to kill them to hide the mother's crime of murdering this child, and that's where the 3 hours went that the police were asking them. And I was like, oh, this show's getting serious. Sorry. Yeah.
No. But like, can I just say this? The Dudleys, there's these. The one thing this show tries to do, at least I think it does decently well, is do a lot of foreshadowing. Before Annabelle's reveal, we have the conversation with both Horace Dudley and Clara Dudley, where they talk about the firstborn, and then Clara reveals that she has a daughter now, and she never gets to leave. She stays, at their house. But the thing that I feel like is crazy is that Annabelle, like Nell and Luke both saw Annabelle and saw her die, right? The fact that even when they're adults, Abigail, so not Annabelle, but they saw her die, but they still are all referring to her as Luke's imaginary friend. Right? Like, I feel like Nell could be like, no, she was real. I also have a hard time believing that the kids would be able to, I guess, just show up at the house and stay the night and nobody would know.
Do you think the dad gaslit the kids and was like, no, Abigail, that wasn't real. That wasn't your mother. That wasn't Abigail. Don't believe what you saw.
Maybe that adds to the distrust of him.
Mm-hmm.
I did like that she was real versus being fake, even though apparently no one ever seemed to see her.
It's a good twist, but I don't think they pulled it off.
Yeah.
Like the Dudleys, they basically kept her prisoner. I think they said, like, she is unknown to the outside world. She's like the village.
Mm-hmm.
M. Night Shyamalan, and we're supposed to be sympathetic for these people. I don't know. Like, if you knew you lived next door to and worked at a haunted house, like, I don't know, I would move somewhere else and go get a different job, right?
Yeah, maybe the housing market's really bad there and they can't sell the house. But also, Horace brings Clara in and she dies, and immediately grabs an infant and little Abigail. How's he gonna get there when it's his time? Is he just gonna have to live at the house until he croaks?
Yeah, I didn't
get
that.
Gonna off himself.
Yeah, he's probably gonna have to go jump off those stairs too.
But like, what kind of functionality does a little baby ghost have? Like, I mean, they can't really think or speak or move. I guess they can maybe float around. What has the baby ghost been doing?
It reminds me of the baby vampire from What We Do in the Shadows. Yeah, like, Gosh, I guess you're just haunted by the cries because the ghost is, I guess, there. You just hear
I
the
guess
crying over
so.
and over again. I don't know.
I was just thinking, I don't know, like these. I guess you can't choose to move on here, whatever, right? I mean,
It's a prison. Nell
yeah,
says the house is whole. It's like I'm inside something that's eaten me.
Right, the red room is described as the house's stomach that's digesting them one by one, right?
Mm-hmm.
I guess like
Speak,
feeding on their souls.
Speaking of which, I feel like watching Twin Peaks was like taking the red pill, and now I'm I'm on the other side. Everything's a Twin Peaks reference. Everything's a dream.
Everything's an
Like
homage. Everything's Lynchian in some way. He's had such a huge impact in the culture, and you just never knew it.
yeah, like Red Room. The room wasn't even red. The door was red,
Yeah.
right? And then I got huge the fireman giant vibes out of the ghost that we were talking about that was haunting Luke, the
Yep.
floating tall man. And Russ Tamblyn
Yep.
makes an appearance as a psychiatrist. Like, I did discover he was in the 1963 film version of the adaptation, so another connection there. But I think Mike Flanagan, who is the creator and director of the show, I think he's got to be a huge Twin Peaks fan.
I think it's fair to say, and I think there's a lot more people out there that were just influenced by Lynch in some way, even if it's you know um, unconsciously to some degree.
Mhm.
Themes that feel right, especially with dealing with like paranormal or weird or spiritual things. Like Lynch really kind of gets you to think about those type things. So if you're going in that route, you kind of have a safety net to a degree. We've all been conditioned by it without knowing, like these feelings, these ways of telling the story. So I personally love it, and I'm glad that you kind of described it that way, because it's kind of like there's two types of people in this world: people who've seen The Wire and people who haven't seen The Wire. Like I feel like that's the same thing with Twin Peaks. You know?
Yeah.
It definitely is something. You know, so like, is the mom really just like super delusional, even in ghost form? Because I feel like Nell, she like had her. I mean, she was kind of disjointed, but she had her mind, and she was still kind, and she talked to her siblings, and even like snapped them out of their little like dream coma things they were doing. But the mom was still on her. I mean, like what, 20 years later, she's still like, he's taking them from me and killing them. Like it's all his fault. You took them from me. Like she was still like in that way. And I was just like, you haven't had time to think about this and realize some things.
Well, yeah, that's fair. I also think that, remember, there's the old lady, and then there's the like 1920s flapper dancer lady, and
Poppy.
Poppy, and so like Poppy is the one who kills Olivia, and she's the one who poisons Olivia's mind, right? And
Yeah.
the old woman's like, she lies. So I don't
Mm-hmm.
know. Maybe Poppy had been sitting there the whole time, continuing to poison her. Continuing to, because but that's what I'm saying about the inconsistencies. Like, who destroyed the Forever Home if it wasn't Olivia? Who beckoned them to come back to the house if it's not Olivia? Is it the house? Is the house using their images? But then why is Nell being projected out there? Right?
And trying to prevent them from coming. She's like,
Yeah,
don't
because she
go.
don't.
Yeah.
So that's where, for me, the story starts to break down, is that
Mhm.
the rules of their universe they don't hold to, and because of that, it feels like a fun story, a entertaining one, but if you look too deep, the facade begins to crack.
It's the same thing with the Red Room being different things for people. And the
Mm-hmm.
dad's like casually in present day, like, yeah, I mean, we never had a treehouse, man. What were you all talking about? And like all these other rooms that couldn't have been existing. Like every time the kids said where they found something, the Clara's like, you found it where? Like, oh, in my game room or whatever. It's like, So it's like they're having all these experiences that people in places people don't exist, but everyone's just like,
But
crazy kids.
that's the other thing is like they all enter through the red door to this room that doesn't exist, but they all know that the red room's locked and there's no key to it.
Yeah.
Like how is Steve getting into it? How is Theo getting into her exercise room? How is Luke getting into his treehouse? How is Steve going into Luke's treehouse?
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, the show it does a good job of keeping you disoriented throughout
Mm-hmm.
because we're never really given a good sense of which area connects to which. We spend a lot of time in that kind of central area with the staircase, and then apart from that, we have hallways and we have rooms, but we don't have a good sense of how all of that connects together. I think very intentionally. So I imagine maybe like they aren't actually entering that room through the red door. They're experiencing it as accessing through one of those other hallways in the house, I would suppose.
I would just assume they were like in a dream state or something, like some sort of like they're connected.
Yeah.
They'll have like a gift. I don't know. I don't really. Yeah, I don't really. Like you said, it's kind of like, what are the rules? Like Aaron was saying. Okay, they did a good job. It made for a good and a cool story. But if you think about it too much, it starts kind of like getting a little flimsy.
Again, in a very Lynchian way, you look too closely at the facade, it begins to fall apart. It's more Twin Peaks references.
Well, we came close to this, but we did not award any Bobbies to Haunting of Hill House. So anybody want to name a Bobby award for Hill House?
I mean, honestly,
I liked
I like
Horace.
Luke. You liked Horace. Interesting.
He just seemed like a good dude. Didn't even want to turn
Hor-
the dude in for murdering his daughter.
You know what? And I'm going to second that because also the way he handled Hugh in the basement.
Yeah,
Whenever he was
I
like,
love that story. His
whenever he's
voice,
like,
something about his voice was so calming.
yeah, but the way he handles like, maybe it's not my place, but maybe your lady should get out. And he was like, yeah, you're right. Maybe it's not your place. And instead of getting uppity, instead of being like, well, fine, you know, he goes into this parable type story and he ties it all back to his experience and he says and he comes back and uses it again. It's like, yeah, it's maybe not my place, but I felt you should know this. And the way that he told that, I agree, that's the Bobby moment for me with Horace. Like that was good because it was addressing someone without being affected by their reaction to you.
You guys must be mind readers because that's what I had in mind was that monologue that he has. You know, we get a lot of speeches, we get a lot of monologues. It seems like everybody kind of gets their moment at least a couple times. But Horace, that was really his only big dialogue moment, and he stole the series.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, it made me feel things. I'm sure you, as a parent, you probably felt it more.
Yes, some of this was tough, and there's I've known people who are very close to me who had a very similar story to what happened to Luke, and to think about a parent who's suffering from a mental illness that convinces them that they need to save their child by
Killing them.
having them drink poison, that was effective. That was affecting. That got me.
Well, the way they depicted it as it being the reasonable thing. Would you wake
Right.
us? Would you wake us from a dream if we were doing this? Like those little monologues that the kids had to Olivia were quite haunting, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like they were designed to be, but like if imagine like if you're a parent and this is your child asking you for this, you're it's a break from reality, but like
Mm-hmm.
Here's a question. Uh, okay, like so, let's assume Luke had actually died or whatever. But like, so if you knew the future of like your children suffering torment for like 20 plus years and then being like essentially murdered in a horrible way, and that's what was going to happen, like, what would you choose? Would you? I mean, that I guess rat poison kind of sucks, but like, what if you just put them to sleep forever? Like, if you knew if it was between what you knew to be the future
Oh,
and then just
gosh.
like letting them drift off to sleep in their childhood, where it was like before all the bad stuff happened. That's essentially what her choice was. Like, she didn't know it, but like
Mhm.
it did all come true. Like it was the future, except for he didn't die. Luke didn't die.
That's such an impossible choice. It's so difficult to even start to process.
But it also isn't your choice to, right? Like I think that's the answer, is that that's their life, not yours. Even if what they choose to do haunts you, that's their autonomy, that's their existence, that's their, you know, life. So if that was true, that they're going to have a horrible existence and then die, uh, that's it's not your place to stop that to some degree.
Right. Yeah. In reality, with an uncertain future, of course. Yeah. But if I saw the future and was, and could be 100% certain that that was the outcome, oof,
I think
that's
of
tougher.
Nietzsche's eternal reoccurrence, and where he poses a thought, experiment to himself, where if in the middle of the night, and again, remember, Nietzsche suffered from quite a bit of bodily ailments and issues for many, many years of his life. But if a demon or an angel appeared to you in the middle of the night and asked you, what if I told you that you're going to relive this exact life, every moment, every up, every down, every sadness, every happiness, everything that you experience, and you're going to relive it infinite times with no changes, with no differences, and it's going to be the same thing over and over again. Would you consider that to be condemnation or to be the greatest thing to ever happen? Do you love your life and your experience regardless of what happens, or do you dread it? And it's a perspective thing.
Mhm.
Like even through horrible things, why do people still survive? Why don't, when horrible things happen to people, they don't just kill themselves? Because I think at a core essence, we believe that still experiencing horrible things is better than not experiencing it all. Um,
Well, I think the
but
two culprits is like religious fear of damnation, and then also like you don't want to hurt your family is why most people do it, because like the people that care about you be sad probably.
like, why people don't commit suicide?
Yeah.
I mean, but I think that there's other people that don't want to commit suicide because they don't want to die. Like, there's people who go through horrible shit, like people in jail. Why don't they commit suicide? Like that someone's been put in jail for forever. Like, there's a lot of people who just adapt to their new life. So why do people in jail not want to be put on death row? So
Yeah. I don't want to talk too much about religion, but I guess I am going to. But like,
that's fair. That's fair.
but I want to get this thing because I've had this thought for a while. It's just like, like our minds, our little minds can't even like we can't comprehend infinity or like
Hmm.
eternity. Like we can't comprehend even like a billion or a trillion. Like we definitely can't comprehend like $1 trillion. Like just like how big that is compared to like $1. You know what I mean? Like, or seconds, like a trillion.
Our
Like
perception
I
breaks
don't.
down when you get to really, really,
Yeah,
really, really
it's like
big
I don't
numbers.
think. I just don't see. It's just my own view. So sorry to if I'm gonna piss off some of our dedicated viewers, but just like how can even if we do bad things in our like 90 to 100 years if we're lucky, like infinitesimally small amount of time with our puny little brains who can't even comprehend like eternity. Like I don't know how we're supposed to be responsible for our eternal like if you're Christian heaven or hell. Like it seems like an impossible thing that we could even be like responsible for that. Like we don't have the processing power. Like I don't know how it would be fair to either be rewarded or definitely not condemned like from the choices we make. with our little brains in our little microcosm of time. That's just my thoughts. I mean, there are truly evil deeds and people out there, but just like the average Joe just doesn't seem like something we're capable of or we should be held responsible for.
There's a lot of different ways of looking at spirituality, religion, things like that. I think that because growing up in Western civilization, post-Christian Europe, America, all those things, we have a very, Judeo-Christian perspective built up around us. Terminology, heaven and hell, things like that are pretty normal, especially in the South. But I personally think that, because I'll be honest, like I believe that there's something more to the universe than just the physical existence of everything we see. Do I necessarily believe in the dogmas and doctrines of the religions of men? No. But when I stopped putting the concept of God into a box, everything got more interesting. Like, to me, I don't think that it's about what you think right. I do think that in a certain sense we have an opportunity here to become better people and to choose in each moment to do something better than what we did before. And I consider that to be the true test of men, of women, of humanity, is whether or not we choose to be better than our base animal instincts. That's what I find separates us from everything else on this planet, is that ability to do something that the animal in us wouldn't, to be above, to rise above. And to me, that's the true religion. That is what every single religion on this planet is truly trying to get to, is that we can be better. And then priestcraft and rigid structure and religion and text and doctrines and dogmas and liturgy and all of that stuff starts to come in and supplant that simple message of be better, do better. And it then becomes dividing lines, identities. You're not in this group, you're in that group. You're not a part of my tribe, you're a part of their tribe, whatever it may be. And it just kind of bogs down and we lose the original flavor. So to me, I think that a lot of the religious anxiety and wrestling and stressors of our society are very, very shallow and superficial. And we would benefit a lot from just going to a very simple, be better, be excellent to each other.
I like it. That was so eloquently said. You must be a lawyer,
huh? Or just someone who's watched Bill and Ted a few times.
Yeah, you got an A in your public speaking course in university.
I don't know about that, but I do.
I agree. I'm just
like
no matter the religion, it's like when you say it can only be this way, it's like you're just like limiting your own God's power by, like you said, putting them in a box where this is the only things they can do or be. You're like making it worse than it should be for yourself.
I think that it's hard right now, especially in our current society, because there's so much identity driven everything, marketing, politics, cliques, tribes, whatever you want to call it. And religion is one of those big identities, right? It's everywhere and everything. It's interwoven in our society. And I don't know, to me, I grew up in a very religious family. I have been part of the evangelical church. I've been part of house churches. I have done, gone everywhere, asked every question, and one of the things that really funnily kind of changed my way of thinking about stuff is a very simple story in the Bible. Once every 7 years, the Jews got together and they read the Torah, and then they went back to the fields and lived their lives. And I was like, people go to church every week. Like, you gotta go to church every week. I go to church every week. And like in ancient Israel, they're like, we get together once 7 years, read the Bible, go home. and I was like, you know what? Maybe that's the reason why we're so screwed up, is that we obsess about things that we're not supposed to obsess about. Be excellent to each other. Do better. We're gonna make mistakes. Learn to forgive each other when you can. Be better. And it's to me a very simple message that's very hard for people to take.
I am on the side of religion in that they built some beautiful churches for me to see around the world. So thank you for that.
Time and money, my friend. You can do a lot of things with time and money. So are we ready for the scores?
Sure, let's get some
Ready.
scores on here.
Like, and what are we scoring? Like, what from this series
Red
could
doors.
be red doors? Number of red doors. Number of drinks that Theo drank.
Cups of stars.
Oh, cups of stars. I like that.
Well, this was a Tony pick. How many cups of stars?
It's gonna have to be a 7 for me. Like I said, like there was a couple times while watching, I was just kind of like, you know what, this is not really getting to the point very quickly. And then, like I said, I didn't like the whole. It kind of went more instead of from psychological thriller, it started talking about like time and space a little bit, or at least time. And that kind of, I was like, I just want things to be scary and ghosts, simpler maybe. But I thought beautiful show, great acting, great casting, like you mentioned, Jay. Like everyone looked like themselves, especially the kids to adults, and I thought everyone did a great job all the way around. I love like the cinematography, the transitions. So I really liked everything pretty much about the show, but those little points that I found myself kind of snapping out of it kind of lowered me down to a 7, I think.
7 cups of stars. I'm going to join you there with 7. I'm predisposed not to like horror because I just don't like scary. But good story, and the scary was pretty dialed back. So if you're not a horror person, then I think I would recommend this show to you. So 7 cups of stars from me. How about you, Aaron?
I think that this has been my second time watching through, getting to kind of see the pieces in a more deconstructed manner, knowing the twists, the turns, and things like that. I'm actually going to give it a 6. It's a positive review still. I enjoyed the experience, but the continuity issues, some of the writing choices, the dialogue choices that I thought were less than authentic or genuine or believable. And honestly, the biggest thing is the continuity. Whenever they could have fixed it all by like having it be like that Olivia was out there haunting people in the world. But because they had her have that one line, it just really messed up the entire continuity of the show. And for me, that when you bust up your continuity that big, it really hurts the landing. I also felt like they pretty pink bowed it a little too hard. Like the last episode, like pulling on your heartstrings, everything's wrapping up. You get the final monologue, and we all learned a lesson. And Hill House still stands, and Ghost Mom, Dad, and Nell just get to hold each other, and that's not seen as a bad thing being digested by a house forever. But now it seems like everybody's happy since they're not alone. It doesn't actually come together at the end, right?
That really pulled me out when like the servants, whatever their last name was, they're all like, like we want to die in this house so we can live together forever. And like, yeah, it's like I thought this was like a prison of like torment, not like a get out of jail free card and live together forever. Like, just kind of really pulled me out.
So see, that's why I come back with a 6. Is that I feel like the show has a lot of good things going for it. I also feel like it didn't weave them all together the way that they should have. There were some holes, there were some loose ends, there were some less than stellar writing at times. And I think it's worth watching. I especially think that if you're getting into horror, this is a good entry level type horror show. As Jay was saying, it's not like chock full of scares. It's not that intense. It builds suspense. It takes you to some fun, scary places, but it doesn't torment you there. It doesn't leave you there. It's more of a flash in the pan, and then you're, talking about what just happened. So I definitely that's how I'd say this is kind of like, horror with training wheels. It's definitely drama, supernatural, then horror, if I can put it in that order.
Mhm.
But
That reminded me of something else. Is like it doesn't linger. Like these people just get over these things like in the matter of minutes.
yep,
Like they're just like, okay, well, that happened. Like Theo and her dad see the ghost, and they're like, so we're not gonna talk about it. And then it's like dropped.
nope,
And then they have that moment in the car, and they're like, oh, hey, that was Nell. Like, okay, let's have our bond. Let's just get all our stuff solved, and then we'll just keep on going to the house. Like nothing's wrong. It's like it's everyone's got over things so quick. Like if I was a kid, I'm getting haunted every night. Like I'm gonna be like cold sweats, like peeing my bed, like shaking my parents' doors every night. I'm like, get me the F out of this house. I don't know how they could live a whole summer there with that stuff.
Mhm.
well, I guess I don't know this. I don't have kids, but as little Ollie gets older, I assume that he's going to have nights where something scares him and needs to be reassured by parents that there's nothing there. It's just that there was something there this time, and the parents were acting like normal parents, saying there wasn't anything there, right? He would just kind of didn't
Yeah.
believe the kids.
Like if Ollie tells me there's a monster under his bed, I'm not actually going to think there's a monster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's what the monster wants you to do, Jay.
exactly.
Yeah, exactly. That's what makes it so scary.
So, but I don't know. I feel like this was a good, I guess, first offering by Flanagan. Like, because I know he does 2 more movies or 2 more series with Netflix. I haven't watched the second one, The Blind Manor, but I did watch the third one, The Midnight Mass, and I thought Midnight Mass was phenomenal. Like they did a lot better. Do you think that there's a little bit of plot issues, but that I think that the story's more consistent and interesting. But that's my thoughts.
We've got 7 cups of stars from Tony and I, and then 6 cups of stars from Aaron. Anybody big fans of The Omen? Because it's
I never saw the
6.66.
original, but I saw the I saw the one with Leaf Schreiber or whatever in it,
Oh yeah, I saw that one.
the remake.
I watched the satire version of it with Adam Scott from Parks and Rec, where he like marries the mother of the Antichrist and like is going through all the Omen type shit, but trying to be the good like stepdad,
That sounds awesome.
It's so good. I can't remember the name of it. It's like Little Evil. That's what it's called. But it's just a straight up satire of the Omen. But Adam Scott is, the stepfather of the Antichrist.
I'm ready for a good horror movie. Like I feel like Conjuring 1 and 2 were pretty freaky.
Yep.
I like
Very
those.
good.
I love a good exorcism movie if I could find one. Like there's one, The Rite, with Anthony Hopkins in it. I thought that was pretty good. And there's one coming out with like this. I don't recognize the actress, but she seems to be like a nun going in and being like the first little like female trained exorcist.
Yeah, I saw
it
that
looks
one
pretty
too.
good. So hopefully that one's good. I want to see that one. That Smile movie looks pretty interesting too. So hopefully there's some good horror movies coming along the way.
We're moving into October. This is about the time that we'll start seeing some good horror films coming out. Jay, what's the scariest show and or movie you've ever seen? Just curious.
Good question.
Like
Twin Peaks.
Twin Peaks is the scariest.
No,
I laughing. Man, Bob was scary as heck, man. He just creeped me out every time. I don't know how he was so creepy. Yeah. Just him crawling around with his weird smile.
Yeah, that freaked me out. But I did see the 1999 The Haunting with Michael Douglas, and I did see there was a horror movie that I went to see in law school that starred Elizabeth Red Witch from the superhero stuff. It was like one continuous shot through a house that was being renovated, like all the haunted houses always are. I think it was called Silent House, maybe.
You want to scare
2011?
movie Sinister.
You are right, Elizabeth Olsen.
Elizabeth Olsen, that's what it is. But like that movie, maybe it's because I've only seen like 3 things that are scary, but like if there's a haunted house in America, there's gonna be a secret basement, and if the house is in the South, the secret basement was used for underground railroads, and if the house is in the North, the secret basement is prohibition. Like that seems to be just across the board.
So you've never seen like Paranormal Activities 1?
No.
And Joni, did you watch Paranormal Activities 1?
Yeah, but it was not long after it came out. It's been a while since I've seen it.
I saw that in theaters, and I have to say the thing that got me, like, it was a fun movie. It was made for like $7,000. Like, it's
Right.
nuts how shoestring the budget was and how fun the movie is. But it ends with no credits. The original movie theater version, like it just ends black screen, no credits. And that was the moment. That was what got me. I was like, God, that made it feel real.
Ooh.
Like when you get to the end of the movie and there's no credits, it's like, oh God damn, what just happened? I'd never been to a movie like that. I was like, oh, that felt like I just watched the whole movie.
Yeah, I can see how that would be chilling.
But I don't know. I love the Paranormal Activity movies. They are so fun and weird and creepy and freaky. But they got too bloated and ridiculous. But I don't know. Then there's like the cameras, like in things moving and stuff like that. That just, it gives you, even though it's fake and it just gives you chills when you see something happen that's not supposed to.
Escalating. Yes, lady's getting like her covers pulled off, and then it like yanks on her leg.
Yeah.
Like throughout the stuff, you never really see what it is.
No, you never. You never see anything, and that's what's so good about that one is there's never the reveal of, oh, that's the monster. Boo, boo.
It's always disappointing whenever you see the monster. Like Jeepers Creepers 1, I was like, this is a scary freaking movie, and then you see the monster, and you're like, this is a lame monster.
So, did you see they're making a new Jeepers Creepers movie?
I did not.
Yeah,
did they make a TV show, or am I just like wondering at that?
I don't know, but I do know that I saw a trailer for a new Jeepers Creepers film, and it's like at a like festival, at like a Halloween festival, so everyone's dressed up in costumes. So the Jeepers Creepers just like walking around with everybody.
Man, The Ring is still pretty good with Naomi Watts.
I never actually watched The Ring.
When she gets scared, she's like, Dougie. Just kidding. That's for our longtime listeners there. That's a...
Who listened to the
last No, it's good though. That's a good one.
It seemed like The Ring was like the go-to horror movie for like 8th through 10th grades when I was going to school.
My understanding is it's like one of those things whenever something new hits the scene, right? And everyone talks about it and it's different. Like The Ring was the introduction of kind of the Japanese horror style into Western audience. That's how what I remember people talking about. Same with like Blair Witch. Blair Witch is not all that great of a movie. It was just kind of groundbreaking in its day for what they were trying to do, right?
Oh, you know what I did see back in the day that freaked me the fuck out was The Grudge.
That's interesting. I've never even seen The Grudge, Jay. I've seen some crazy movies.
No. God, that and your Gollum voice, like, oh. Man, it's like I'm alone in the house for this weekend, and that's out of the ordinary. And this was the wrong weekend to be watching ghost stuff.
Oh man,
sleep with the lights on. I remember whenever I first started getting into horror films, stuff like that, because my family doesn't watch that. My mom and dad, they watch like the Hallmark Channel and boring stuff. Love them to death. But we just didn't watch that. And so whenever I turned like 15, 16, I started watching like The Evil Dead and watching Final Destination and kind of more suspense, thriller, horror films. And I don't know, they're just in the same way that comedy like elicits this kind of catharsis. There's also a catharsis that comes with getting scared a little bit and then being okay afterwards. So
Yeah, I like it. It's like a long roller coaster.
Yeah.
Like a roller coaster, you're like, oh, while it's happening, and afterward, you're like, you know what? That was a great. Let's do it again. That's how I feel like after a horror movie. Like I'm all stressed out the whole time, and then when it's over, you're like, hey, that was pretty fun. Let me watch it
Made me
again.
feel a lot of things.
Well, we've got an average score of 6.66 repeating. That puts it on par with Miracle Workers Season 2, just above Man in the High Castle, and just below Tokyo Vice. Looks like it's about, a little bit under 50th percentile.
I think it's just apropos that it was 666.
Yeah. That was pretty awesome.
I'm not going to think about that one too much.
Well, are we ready for the Wheel of Randomonium?
We
Yes,
are.
Indeed.
So, for our offerings this time around, I am bringing back to the table, to the wheel, Letterkenny Season 1 and 2. I've tried numerous times to get this on the show. I'm believing in second chances, and let's go. Also, that is wrong. This would be Season 1 of The Old Man.
You know what?
Sorry.
Real fast, I'm going to pull an October surprise, and I am going to...
The Law of Surprise.
I'm also going to nominate Letterkenny because that's what I want to watch. So I
Just like
briefly
our score,
put something
it has
else
a
up.
66.6% chance of being picked.
Oh, stop it, man. Freaking me out.
Hey, look, just remember how the beginning of Number of the Beast by Iron Maiden starts. It is a human number. Should be worried about it, my friend. All right, so Tony, you have brought The Old Man. Tell us about The Old Man.
All right, it's on FX. It's got Jeff Bridges in it. It seems mysterious. It's like him. John Lithgow is like an old FBI. I think it's his old kind of FBI. I don't know, team leader, I guess. Anyway, he like ran operations, and this old case from, I think it's. Please don't get mad if I'm wrong. I think it's Afghanistan. Like maybe before like our U.S. Afghanistan war, but I think this old case from that time period comes back up, and Jeff Bridges has been in hiding for like 20 or 30 years or whatever. This case finally comes up, and it comes to the point where Jeff Bridges needs to die or disappear, and so it's kind of like him getting back into it and like trying to stop the people that are coming for him and his family.
So it's Jeff Bridges as Jason Bourne, but the old man version?
Like an old man Jason Bourne. Yeah.
Can't wait.
I watched the first few episodes. It was pretty good, although Jeff Bridges seemed to be making some questionable choices. Oh, it's also got what's her name? Lori from The Leftovers. Amy Brenneman, is that her name?
Okay.
Yeah, she's in it.
Well, I'm going to shuffle, and with that, we shall spin to win.
Spin, 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 spin. And it's Letterkenny.
I was going to say, it was really close.
I put my thumb on the scale with that one.
You did.
If I would have won, I would have had to recuse myself from the next Wheel of Randomonium.
You would. That is the rules.
Ooh. Well, did we differentiate whose third that fell onto?
I'll take it.
I mean, you don't have to.
No, I shuffled. There's no way to tell. I copied and pasted. So there's literally nothing different about the two entries. And then I shuffled them numerous times. So I'm going to take it. Since you changed yours, I'll October surprise and say that it was mine.
All right, I'll take it. So next up, Letterkenny, and you said first two seasons?
Yeah, because season 1 was like 6 episodes and season 1 was like 12, and that's kind of like a normal like sitcom show length. So I felt like that was it hits its stride episode 1 of season 2, in my opinion.
Okay.
And so season 1 is a little silly trying to figure out where they're going. There is some character development, early entry kind of stuff. Season 2, honestly, they figure it out and it starts rolling hard. So neither of you have seen it, correct?
Right.
Correct.
I'm super excited to see this because this is very memeable. So
I can't wait. All right, well, good show, boys. We will be back at you next time with another great episode of the show, talking about the first couple seasons of Letterkenny. Thank you, gentlemen, very much for joining me.
you're welcome.
And I will see you on the show. And Joe, I'm going to stop the